Dear students, good morning to all of you. Today we will start the new chapter that is government budget and the economy, or we may say the new unit that is the government budget and the economy. Remember it. After this there is that one more unit. Next, after the finishing, I will start that Indian economic developments. So before this, you must purchase that Indian economic development book, either NCERT book or that is that Bikewari book, or another is that IC Dhingra book. First of all, you will purchase that. Accordingly, you will see the book. NCERT book is the best book, which is the best. After that, you may purchase that any other books, it is up to your choice. So today's topic is government budget in the economy and the economy. What do you mean by budget? What do you mean by budget? Budget is a word which is derived from that French word. Budget is a word which is derived from the French word from budgeti, B-O-U-G-E-T-W. Budget is a word which is derived from the French word that is that budgeti. B-O-U-G-E budget, which means we can say that one leather bag and the leather bag or a wallet, and generally we keep money in the wallet. So the Chancellor of Exchequer in England used to carry the financial proposals in a leather bag. Try to understand. It means the Chancellor of Exchequer in England used to carry that financial proposals in a leather bags to the House of Commons every year. So from that day, we are also observing that budget day, and that budget implies from that 1st April to that next year of that 31st March. From 1st April to 31st March. In simple word, budget is a document which contains, or we may say that, estimates of the government revenue and that expenditures. Because last period or last topic, whenever I was discussing that measures to correct the deficient demand, that time monetary measures and fiscal measures. And fiscal measures, or it is to be called that budgetary policy measures, two components I was said, one is the revenue policy, another is the expenditure policy. So at that time, I was told all of you that I will explain in detail in the next chapter, that is that government budget and the economy. So whenever government overs that budget in the fiscal year, which runs from the 1st April to next year 31st March, so government estimates what are the heads of the revenue and what are the heads of the expenditure, or which way the sources of money come, and what are the way of that expenditures. So thus there are two main components budget. One is that receipt sides, another is that expenditure side. This budget, one is receipt sides, another is that expenditure side. So what is budget? That according to Indian Constitution, as per our Indian Constitution, Article 112, budget means the annual financial statement. Budget means the annual financial statement. Annual financial statement. Budget means the annual financial statements. It means it is the proposed, or it is estimate that one financial year which start from that 1st April to 31st March, that financial statements which containing an estimate of all anticipated expenditure and income, or revenue and expenditure, which contains all kinds of estimate, revenue and expenditure. Revenue and expenditures. Revenues, that was discussing in the last period, sources of revenue like tax revenue and non-tax revenue. So revenue and expenditure of the government in a financial year. This is called the budget. Indian Constitution says that budget means the annual financial statement which contains all financial estimate, revenue and expenditure of the government in a financial year, or that we may use that coming financial year. That may be that 1st April to 31st March of next year. That is to be called that budget as per the Indian constitutions. So fiscal policy means the policy relating to the public revenue and that expenditures. So similarly, fiscal policy is called the budgetary policy. Budgetary policy related to the public revenue and public expenditure. So budget is an important instrument used to describe the fiscal policies of the government and the financial plan corresponding to them. So a budget shows the financial statement, financial accounting of the previous year. The budget is revised estimates of the current year and the budget estimates of the coming year. It means whenever the finance minister go through that budget, at that time he may also explain that what was that previous year and what is that current year and what will the estimate in that future year. So that government budget is a statement showing item wise estimated receipts and estimated expenditures. item wise estimated revenue and estimated expenditure. That is to be called that budget. Now it is clear what to mean by budget. Just simple meaning. Budget is a word which derived from the French word budgeting, which means that leather bag. Which means that leather bag or that wallet. Wallet is used for that keeping that money. So the Chancellor of that England, who was using that leather bag in the parliaments, which will be detail of that coming financial year or that proposed financial revenue and expenditure of that coming year, that is to be called that budget. As per that, our Indian constitution, budget means the annual financial statement which contains all kinds of estimate of revenue and expenditure of the government in coming financial year. So Article 112, the Constitution of India states that an annual financial statement will be placed before both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, because there are the two houses. One is Lok Sabha, another is the Rajya Sabha in the parliaments. So that budget will be placed before the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This is called the budget of the central government. Similarly, each government, it means each state government also, as per the Article 202, Article 202, every state also prescribe that budget, or we may say that they also require that annual financial statement or the budget before the legislature of the state is called also budget, the state of the governments. It means the budget may be in our country. One is that central budget as per that central government, another is that state budget. Every state they may prepare also budgets. So now it is clear what do mean by budgets. Next, elements of the budgets. What are the elements of the budgets? It is statement, expected revenue and proposed expenditure of the authority concerned. First, estimated revenue. It means which way the revenue should be generated. That is to be called that estimated revenue. Estimated revenue. Which way the revenue should be generated, and whenever the revenue is generated, that must be that expended. So that is why the expenditure side also it should be analyzed. It means first components or first elements is that a statement of expected revenue and proposed estimate of the authorities concerns. It requires that same authority to sanction it. It means there is the different departments. So different department also they have to sanction it, and it has a periodically, and generally it is an annual. It is also sets for that procedure and manner which the collection of revenue and the administration of expenditures is to be extended. It means there are mainly two components of the budget. One is revenue, another is the expenditures. So estimated revenue means what are the sources of revenue, and after the generating of the revenue, how or which way in the different heads of the expenditures. That is the elements of the budgets. So next is that why that budget is placed, or what is the objectives of budgets. Objectives of budget. First one is that redistribution of income and wealth. First objective is that redistribution of income and wealth. Dear students, we have already known the national income, the total money value of all the final goods and services produced in a country, in an economy, is to be called the national income. So here is that first point is that objective is redistribution of income and wealth. Government through fiscal tools of taxation, subsidies, transfer payments bring about that fair distribution of income and wealth. Fair distribution of income and wealth. It means whenever that income generated, after that in our country there are the two sections of the people. One is rich section, another is that poor sections. So rich section people, they have that more money, more income, and poor section of people, they have the less purchasing power. So how that income is to be redistributed among the rich and poor people, or we may that haves and have not peoples. So that is to be called that equitable distribution of income and wealth. Generally, that main objective is that increasing that government activities. It means the activities of the government have increased tremendously. Therefore, large resources have to mobilize to meet that expenditure required to perform those activities. All this cannot be conducted properly without a budget. That is why it is that plan or estimated how that money is to be generated or income is to be generated and how that money is to be expended. Because in an economy we need also to increase our productions. Increase production, this is our objectives, to increase our national income. How that national income will be increased? By increasing that more and more productions. So it is through the budgetary policy the government can help an increase in production, and it can subsidize that agriculture and industry and make provision for industrial research. It can embark funds for grants for various financial institutions started to promote the investment in industry. Various incentives are given through taxation policy so that surplus funds and profits may be reinvested in the private sector enterprises. So we have to increase that more and more productions. Whenever the production increases, national income increases. How the production increases? We can increase the production in the agriculture sectors, we can increase the production in industrial sector, we can increase the production in both the sectors as well as in tertiary sectors, so that that income which is generated, that income should be redistributed among that rich section and the poor peoples. So some extent we impose the tax, the rich people they have to pay that more money. Some extent we give the subsidies, the poor people will be benefited, or that weaker section of the society they will get the benefited, and sometimes government also give that subsidies. That is why the balance should be maintained in between that haves and have-nots, or the feelings of that haves and have-nots, or the difference between that haves and have-nots, or the gaps in between that haves and have-nots will be reduced. That is why the objective of the budget is redistribution of income and wealth. And secondly, reallocation of resources. Second point is that reallocation of resources. Reallocation of resources. Most important points. You will get that so many questions in different ways. Reallocation of resources. Allocation means distribution. Reallocation means redistributions. It means the resources which are to be redistributed. It means the government through its budgetary policy, because we are discussing the government budget. Through this budgetary policy, the government reallocates the resources so that social and economic objectives are maintained or are to meet. There are that. What are the policy? One is economic objectives and another is the social objectives. Social objectives. Both are complementary. We could not leave that anyone. There are that two types of main objectives: economic objectives and social objectives. So economic objective says that to earn that more and more profits, to produce that more and more output, to produce that more and more goods, employment will be increased. So this is our economic objective. And social objective is that social welfare. It means we have to construct that more and more roads, drainage systems, cleanliness at present, and government at present time different scheme is launched, which way the redistribution of income and which way the weaker section of the people, they will get the more advantages or they will get more benefited. So that is why government reallocates its resources and produces these goods which maximize the social benefits. So 2 points. Second points we have discussed reallocation of resources. Third one, economic stability. Economic stability. फर्स्ट पॉइंट हो गया redistribution of income and resources. Second point हो गया reallocation of resources. Third point is that economic stability. What do you mean by economic stability? It means the stable means which we can say that maintain that balance. It means how it maintain the balance? Rich side, rich section peoples and poor section peoples, they will maintain that balance. The balance will be maintained haves and have-nots. So the government tries to prevent the business fluctuations and maintain the price and employment stability. Try to understand. What did I say? Stable means to maintain that balance. It means you will not move. You will be in a constant place or you will be balanced positions. Like a balance when that left side and right side will be equal, that is to be called that balance, that is to be called stable. So nowadays you know that gold price is continuously increasing, and similarly silver price is increasing. So that does not mean that it is stable, because at present time we are looking that fluctuation of the price. If that price increases, then that extends in such way that we can say that excess demand, because supply is less. We have already discussed in that excess demand, in that aggregate demand and aggregate supply chapter. So the government tries to prevent business fluctuations, and business fluctuation or trade cycle I have already discussed: boom, recession, depression and recovery, again boom. These are the stages. So economy always wants to maintain that balance. That economic stability stimulates inducement to invest and increase the rate of growth and developments. It means steadily or slowly, that there should not be that any kinds of fluctuations. The fluctuation is essential. That is why I have already said that although that inflation is worse, but it is better than deflations. So some extent there must be the price rise, some extent there must be the inflations, but that should not be hike at that constantly, or that is that very steeply. So fourth point is that managing public enterprises. Fourth point, managing public enterprises. Managing public enterprises. It means the budgetary policy of the government shows interest of the government to increase the rate of growth through public enterprises. Upon public sector enterprises are encouraged in the areas of natural monopolies, example criteria, water lines, railways, etc., where there are advantages if a single firm produce that goods. That is why when there is that monopoly of the private persons, where that private person cannot accessible to provide these facilities, that particular areas government tries to establish that public enterprises, which way the underdeveloped area will be developed, and that underdeveloped people, they will be developed, or they will get the different kinds of advantages to uplift their standard of living or to uplift their societies. That is why the budget is essential. So these are the objectives of budgets. First one is that allocation, redistribution of income and wealth. Second was the reallocation of resources. Third one is that economic stability, and fourth one is that managing public enterprises. So when budget is placed in front of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, what are the impact of budgets? What are the impact of budgets? The budget impacts an economy in three levels. It brings that aggregate fiscal discipline levels. Impacts of budgets. That first point is that it brings the aggregate fiscal discipline levels. It brings aggregate fiscal, don't be confused, fiscal means budgetary discipline levels. Discipline level. It brings aggregate fiscal discipline level. Please remember this. It means if it is one kind of plan, if it is estimated, if it is proposed, then that will be in the disciplined manner, or it will be in the systematic manners. So that is the government having that control over that expenditures. So by fiscal discipline, we mean a situation of an ideal balance between that revenue and expenditure. As a result of, government will not generate that more money, or unnecessary government will not spend that more money for the welfare of the people or for the production of an economy. That is why there must be that essential check and expenditure, since revenue and governments are limited. Because the government's revenue are limited, there is not that unlimited revenue, because that sources of revenue of that government is that most important is the tax revenue and non-tax revenue. So we will detail discuss on that sources of revenue, what are the taxes revenue, or that is the direct taxes, indirect taxes, and what are the non-tax revenue or that commercial revenue. These we will discuss in that sources of the revenue contents. So now we will go to the impact of the budgets. First impact is that it brings aggregate fiscal discipline level. Second is that it brings better allocation of resources. It brings better allocation of resources. It brings better allocation of resources. It means priority must be given to the social sectors. Government through its two important budgetary instruments of taxation and subsidies. Taxation and subsidies. Collection of the revenue is taxation and government may give that subsidies. Two important, taxation and subsidies. Taxation can be that generate the revenue, subsidies can spend that revenue. Is the difference? So where it should be given subsidies, where the tax should be imposed, and how much tax should be imposed, and what are the sources of revenue. These are the different heads of the allocation of resources. So the two instruments, one is the taxation and the subsidies, will allocate resources to those areas where that society's welfare is maximum. In this way, it well done, or it is done very well by the governments to bring about that equitable distribution of income and wealth. Because the first point objective is that income distribution, or that distribution of income and wealth. So by this better allocation of resources, where the tax should be imposed and what are the commodities we have to impose the tax, and on what goods case we will provide the subsidies, what are the essential goods are consumed by the consumers. These cases mean that one is that to raise the standard of living, another is the those who are the higher income people, how their income should be reduced and which way they will not impact their income, or they will not feel that as we are rich we are paying the more tax, but that types of policies should be implemented by the governments, which way that taxation policies and also subsidies policies. So one is that it brings aggregate fiscal discipline levels, it brings better allocation of resources, and third point, it has effective and efficient provision of programs. Effective and efficient provision of program. Third point, effective, efficient, and efficient provision of program. Remember it. Government time to time introducing the different programs like Jan Yojana. At present times, government launched that scheme Atmanirbhar. So these are the programs which are launched by the government either to generate the income, to create the more employments, or equal distribution of income and wealth, or we may say that how that weaker section of the people they can improve their standard of living, then people will be maintain their balance in between the rich section and the poorer section, or have and have not groups. So these are the impacts of budgets. Thank you.